if anyone's watched the movie about Dhoni's smashing some bowlers around, one of those, unfortunately, was my uncle. My approach when coaching is to, one, understand the science behind fast bowling, but number two, also respect the unique nature of bowlers. He's finding some rhythm, he's finding confidence, and it was only a matter of time before he started to, show that on a pitch. I mean, I always knew that. Me and him both didn't expect it to happen that soon, but all I can say is, the best is still yet to come for him.
Pakistan cricket at its best. 1 minute down, next minute up.
Thanks very much for joining me with my latest exclusive interview for PakPassion. My guest today is not a standard interview that I normally do with current players or former players. He is a very important, cog in the wheel for cricketers. He's a fast bowling coach. He helps fast bowlers as well. And he's worked with a number of great cricketers over the years, the likes of Tymal Mills, Mitchell Johnson. Recently, he worked with Mohammad Hasnain as well regarding some issues he was having with his bowling. I'm delighted to have with me Shahbaz Choudhry. Shahbaz, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks very much for having me, Saj.
Shahbaz, there'll be people out there watching this video who will have heard of you, who will know what you do, but there will be others that don't know who you are or what the important work that you do. So a little bit of a background regarding yourself, please.
Yeah, sure. So I come from a cricketing family. That's the first thing. My uncle Zahid Said, he was a left-arm fast bowler from Pakistan, played in 2 under-19 World Cups, was actually in a Pakistan test squad that was supposed to tour the West Indies, but the sponsor of the tour pulled out. So the PCB converted that team to an A team and sent them to Kenya to play an A team tour against India. If anyone's watched the movie about Dhoni's smashing some bowlers around, one of those, unfortunately, was my uncle. And my first cousin, Bilal Asif, most recently, he's a Pakistani test cricketer, off spinner. So yeah, come from a background which is rich in cricket. I was born and raised in the UK, played county age group cricket for Middlesex and Berkshire, then got signed by Northamptonshire in 2009. And about 7 months later, was released from my contract because I didn't know how to bowl again. So quite a unique story. It's a hard thing to describe without going into, crazy lengths of information. But that pretty much inspired the work that I started to do with the Pace Journal, which was to basically bring very credible information about fast bowling from past and present cricketers and coaches to help the next generation from basically making the same mistakes as me. That then naturally progressed to coaching fast bowlers, which is what I do now.
So, I mean, when you say you're helping fast bowlers, you're coaching them, obviously you've probably got your ECB badges, etc. What exactly do you do as a fast bowling coach?
Yeah, very good question. I mean, the brand is called SpeedCamp. So pretty much we specialize in what it says on the tin. We help fast bowlers with their speed. Now, obviously, there's a number of aspects involved with being a good fast bowler. Speed is one of those assets, and that's very much what we specialize in. So if a bowler is coming to SpeedCamp, they won't necessarily be looking to develop their skills in terms of variations, accuracy, that type of thing. It is very much a explicit focus on speed. We work with bowlers to make them faster.
And tell us about some of the guys that you've worked with. I know Tymal Mills is somebody that you're working with at the moment. In the past, you've worked with Mitchell Johnson, etc. Tell us about some of the guys who you've helped over the years.
Yeah, so I've worked with a whole range of cricketers, amateur, professional. My relationship with Tymal initially began through the Pace Journal, and then after a few years, he asked me for some advice on his own bowling, and we, naturally just did a few sessions, knocked a few ideas back and forth. With Mitch Johnson, I didn't work with him from a coaching point of view, but Mitch and Brett Lee's S&C coach, Jock Campbell, developed an app which they wanted might help with in terms of, helping them distribute this and, getting the right message across to fast bowlers. So my relationship with Mitch Johnson was very much on that type of thing. In terms of working with fast bowlers hands-on, again, there's a whole host of bowlers that I've worked with. Some of the names that people might notice is West Indies fast bowlers Kesrick Williams, Shamar Holder, obviously Tymal Mills, Jaden Seals. Did some work with Mohammad Ali, Pakistani fast bowler. That was last year in Pakistan. And then more recently, Mohammad Hasnain, who's doing really well at the moment.
You say you worked recently with Mohammad Hasnain. Give us a little bit more details. Did the PCB get in touch with you? Did his management team or did the cricketer himself get in touch with you? How does this go about?
Yeah, so Hasnain was doing his rehab in the UK with a physiotherapist in Kent called Dr. Javed Mughal, who has, I believe, worked with the PCB and worked with quite a lot of Pakistani cricketers. And towards the end of that rehab, he needed to do some bowling. So, me and Hasnain linked up. This was last year before the PSL. We did a few sessions. I identified a few areas that, naturally could see that Hasnain is leaking energy. But as he was, one, just completing rehab, and two, going into a franchise tournament, that's not the appropriate time to try and work on stuff like that. So at that stage, it was just a case of making him aware of it. That's the first time me and Hasnain worked together. We really got on. He understood my process. He understood the information that I was giving him. And then, long story short, 6 months later, he's back in the UK. He's got some time after the Lanka Premier League, comes over for a session, which again was just meant to be a check-in session. But I ended up seeing the same inefficiencies that I saw before the PSL. And I said to him, look, you've got about a month here before the one-day cut starts. I know it's hard because you're spending time away from family and friends, but I really think you should stay back here and we should do some thorough work to try and rectify these issues. And fair play to him, he made that sacrifice, he committed, chose to shack up in a one-bedroom apartment in High Wycombe to train 2-3 times a day with me.
And he's reaping the rewards, obviously, because he's looked pretty good in this tournament so far.
Yeah, no, he's looked really good, to be fair. Look, I always expected him to do well just because of the type of bowling he was doing in front of me. I knew that, look, he's finding some rhythm, he's finding confidence. And it was only a matter of time before he started to, show that on a pitch. I mean, I always knew that. Me and him both didn't expect it to happen that soon, but all I can say is that, the best is still yet to come for him.
I guess the million-dollar question to you really is, how do you get bowlers to bowl faster?
Yeah, it's a great question. And look, before being in this position where I coach bowlers, I was on the other side where I was trying to find those answers myself. And I actually believe that I reaped the benefits of all of that experimentation, but I also went too far. So when I said to you that, I was signed and then 6 months later I was released because I didn't know how to bowl, that's because I went too far, played too many experiments, lost that natural artistry of bowling, and just basically became a bit of a robot. So my approach when coaching is to, one, understand the science behind fast bowling, but number two, also respect the unique nature of bowlers. And the way we do that is essentially we use some very sophisticated technology along with our own sort of coach interpretation. And we try to answer three things, okay? The first thing, how does a bowler generate their speed? So if you ask a number of fast bowlers, how do you bowl fast? They most likely will give you a very vague answer. Oh, when I feel like I'm in rhythm. Oh, when I hit the deck. Now, these are all sort of abstract, answers to give. It's nothing tangible. So the first thing we want to know is, from a tangible point of view, how do you bowl fast? The second thing we want to know is, when you lose speed, what is the error that actually occurs? Again, when you ask a bowler, if you feel like you're not bowling fast, why is that happening? the answer they'll normally give is, feel like my rhythm is not there, or I haven't bowled enough, or something like that. Again, very, very vague answers. Now, the technology that we use is able to break down the entire kinetic chain of a fast bowler. So we can actually see when a bowler is bowling quick, what is it that they're relying on? What is it that they are doing that helps them generate that speed? And at the same time, when a bowler is losing speed, so if a bowler is bowling slow, what's changed? Okay. What are the parameters that have now changed, which is causing the bowler to bowl slower? And then that also gives us the answer to our third question, which is how much more potential is there for more speed? And we know that because we test bowlers not just from a from a bowling point of view, but also from an athletic point of view. So we can understand how much capacity there is within the athlete and how much of that they're actually using when they bowl. Sorry if that's a bit of a confusing answer, but
No,
I hope
that's
that
absolutely. I mean,
sense.
I'm sure all the people out there who are into fast bowling, who love their technical aspects of fast bowling, will appreciate that answer. And that brings me nicely on to my next question, really. Time and again, we see Pakistani pace bowlers. They come into international cricket, bowling 145 plus kph, comfortably bowling 140 kph. After a couple of years, the speed's gone, the speed's down. I mean, I can give you countless examples. Hassan Ali, recently we've seen Shaheen Shah Afridi, we've seen the same with Naseem Shah, even Hasnain, who you've worked with. Their speeds were so quick to start off. And then within, as I say, a couple of years, the speeds start going down. Why is that?
Yeah, again, really good question. I guess I can speak on behalf of Hasnain because I've worked with him, and I can openly speak about why his speeds were down. In regards to the other bowlers, all I can offer is an opinion. I'm not in the setup, so I don't know what's being done with the bowlers. But what I will say is there is a reason for everything. And with someone like Hasnain, he didn't actually have that much knowledge on how he generates his speed. And I class a lot of the Pakistani fast bowlers as natural fast bowlers. These guys, they rock up on the scene, they bowl fast, they don't even know how they're doing it. They just run in and they bowl quick. So if things start to go wrong, how can they diagnose that? There's no effective or tangible troubleshooting method because they don't know. All they know is, look, this is how I bowl. Something's changed. I can't put an answer on it. With Hasnain, when I asked him, okay, how do you bowl fast? Again, he just said, I just run in the ball quick. And I'm like, okay. We did a few sessions. I said to him, just run in the ball quick. And naturally, from those sessions, he bowled some spells which were quick. He bowled some spells which were slow. We took those two spells, put them side by side, and I asked him, I said, do you know the difference between these two spells here? Because in one of them you were quicker, in the other you were slower. From his point of view, again, no tangible answer, just vague answers like, oh, I felt my rhythm was off here. But we knew that it was all to do with his run-up speed. So Hasnain's style of bowling very much relies on exploiting kinetic chains. So for him, efficiency is the absolute key. Anything that can disrupt his efficiency will disrupt his speed. So we have a metric called run-up intensity, and we aim for bowlers to be between 70% and 85% of that scale. Whenever Hasnain was upwards of 84%, we saw a lot of variable speed. So, when he got it right and it clicked, he bowls quick, but more often than not, he's bouncing up and down with his speed. So by making him run in just slightly slower by 2 kilometers per hour, we were starting to stabilize that entire momentum chain. And that also gave him, a lot of time and comfort in the crease, which he actually said, Shahbaz, I feel like now that I've got more time, I can focus on where I'm bowling as well. So at the end of it, what we found with him is he generated, well, at the end, he was actually bowling faster, but he was doing it with less effort. Now, going back to the question about the other Pakistani fast bowlers, I think a lot of this is to do with, one, the bowlers not actually knowing how they bowl their speeds, but two, the management of the bowlers. I think it was Gary Kirsten who said a stat the other day on one of the Champions Cup streams, and he said Shaheen's bowled more overs than everyone else. Now, we've got to remember these guys, they're not machines, they're human beings, and fast bowling is very tough. And they're playing all year round. What's the strategy to give them the necessary recovery periods that they need to regenerate their bodies so that they can perform at that level? Because it's not easy.
We're seeing so many Pakistani pacers pick up injuries. I mean, fast bowling and injuries hand in hand over the years. We've seen Wasim, Wakai, Imran Khan, all these guys pick up injuries. But lately, a lot of our fast bowlers, we've seen Ihsanullah come into the fold and pick up a bad injury. Shaheen, Naseem Shah, Hassan Ali, and others. Why are Pakistani pacers picking up so many injuries? Is it volume of cricket or something else?
Yeah, again, really, really good question. And I think it also ties in with what I said earlier regarding understanding the bowler and what the bowler is relying on. So, for example, someone like Ihsanullah, hyperextension is very risky, has a very late turnover of the wrist. There's an incredible amount of stress that's going to be going through that right limb, especially that elbow. And it's not a coincidence that a lot of the bowlers who are notoriously wristy pick up these elbow injuries. So Jofra is another example. He had a snap tendon in the elbow, very wristy bowler. So I think first we've got to understand what these bowlers are relying on to generate that speed, and then trying to bulletproof them as much as we can from picking up those injuries. Workload is a secondary issue. The first issue is how can we protect them? And you can't protect these bowlers unless you know what those specific attributes are that they are relying on. Every bowler is different. No two bowlers are identical in the sense that they put different forces through their body. They move in a different way. So the preparation for each of those players has to be different as well. And again, I can't comment on what those players are doing, but just from a blanket team sport observation, a lot of the time it's quite general. It's not that specific for each player.
Pakistan were kings of pace bowlers. I remember a time when Pakistan and West Indies were the countries producing the most fast bowlers. These days, we're seeing the likes of Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, India, amongst the Asian teams, producing faster bowlers than Pakistan. What's happened there, Shahbaz?
Look, I think if you look hard enough, you're going to find people in Pakistan that can bowl seriously fast. So again, I think having the talent pool is not the issue. I think the talent pool is there. I think it's all how are you going to bring these players into the system? How are you going to nurture them? How are you going to protect them? How are you going to progress them through that journey? I think Pakistan's always kind of been marred with that reputation that the talent is there. There's no question. It's more what you do with the talent. So I think, again, can't comment on what Bangladesh are doing, but I've got no doubt that if we went to Pakistan and just, searched for people who can bowl seriously fast, we're not going to struggle. Like there's going to be, a ton of those players, but then it comes down to what you're going to do with those players. I think that's where we may be going wrong here.
Bowling actions. Are you somebody who likes a fast bowler to have an orthodox bowling action, or are you somebody who would just say to a Jasprit Bumrah or a Lasith Malinga or those guys, just get on and bowl how you feel comfortable?
I think the first step is to allow a bowler to just run in and actually just express themselves. And again, I was a victim of this myself. When I started to bowl fast, I was very raw, and that rawness allowed me to exploit the attributes I had in terms of my physicality. When I started to delve into the technicalities, I started to slow myself down in order to be technically correct. And by doing so, I was losing that natural flair that I had about me. So my approach with fast bowlers now is not necessarily to observe how they look, but observe what they're actually doing. So we've got 3 bowlers at the moment who, born and raised in the UK, close to 90 miles an hour, definitely on the path for us to be 90-mile-an-hour bowlers. We haven't actually done that much remedial work to their bowling actions. We just allowed them to have the freedom to run in a ball fast. Now, tomorrow, I'll say that these bowlers were natural, but they were not destroyed by coaching. And I think this is another issue we have, especially in the UK. You know, it's no coincidence that Pakistan produce so many fast bowlers. Like I said, the raw talent pool is there, but they probably have the least support. That doesn't make a lot of sense. In the UK, we have access to, insurmountable amount of facilities. Funding is not an issue. Why are we not producing the same volume of fast bowlers as a nation like Pakistan? And I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that they just get on with business, whereas we're slowing people down to get them to look right. So to answer your question, first thing, you want to bowl fast, run in, bowl fast, and then look to refine those mechanics.
I mean, in terms of your work, Shahbaz, obviously you've gone into details of what you do. Are counties in touch with you? Are the players in touch with you directly? Are the boards in touch with you to work with players? I mean, obviously you're out there, you're helping all these bowlers around the world. How's the communication happening?
Yeah, good question. I had an approach from a county. They asked me if I'd be interested in a bowling coach role, and I actually turned it down. I said, look, I think my work is very much in development, and I think a bowling coach's role is more to do with performance. So as a bowling coach, it's not necessarily let's take the player to the side and try to develop them holistically. It's more how can we win these games? They've got to worry about the fixtures that are in front of them. So I believe that I'm sort of one step behind that, which is okay, these are the bowlers that we currently have. How can we break them down and give them the best support humanly possible? So I have spoken to a lot of people in high places. Just being in the industry, you get to meet people, you speak to people, and I'm very lucky that I've got a very good network. And I learn from these people as well. We go back and forth, we speak, we bounce ideas off each other. But my relationship with the bowlers is very much private. Like a lot of bowlers, reach out to me. Some that I haven't even been able to mention on here just purely because it might upset.
You can mention them now,
some...
Shahbaz. You can mention them.
Honestly, it's a lot of it is when players are in teams and setups, they also got to be very careful. They can't upset coaches in the system. So a lot of international bowlers have reached out to me, and I've had to give them those second opinions and worked with them privately. But from this point onwards, I believe that I'm more suited in a private role.
And finally, we're going to have people watching this video who want to be fast bowlers, are young fast bowlers and want to bowl even quicker. What advice do you give to those people watching this video who want to be fast bowlers? What should be their priorities?
Yeah, again, that's the $1 million question. Honestly, just running a ball fast. That's the first thing, because number one, it's a hard thing to do, and you can't just flick a switch and bowl fast. This stimulus, this skill takes a very long time to develop. Now, how can you expect to just do a few drills, modify your bowling action a little bit, and all of a sudden just become an express fast bowler? It doesn't work like that. This is a whole journey, and the number one ingredient in that process of building a fast bowler is the desire to bowl fast. A lot of international players, even international quicks, burst on the scene as express fast bowlers, but then they just slow down a little bit. There's countless examples of this across the nations. Now, I actually believe a lot of that is to do with desire. And this is why, especially myself, have so much respect for the likes of Brett Lee and Shoaib Akhtar, because you can tell that these people never, ever lost that desire to bowl fast. So that's the number one ingredient to unearth any potential that you have. But it's also the number one ingredient to keep you, in that whole realm of bowling fast. So first thing, run in, bowl fast, don't give up, do it day in, day out. Your body will start to acquire the technique that's needed to bowl fast. If you've got severe technical issues, then of course you're going to have to do some work on that. But until you just run in and try to bowl as fast as you can, and you give that a good crack, you won't get very far.
Well, Shahbaz, it's been absolutely fascinating to hear your views on fast bowling and the work you do, and tell us about some of the guys that you've worked with and your observations on fast bowling. I think when guys like us get together, we could talk for hours about fast bowling, couldn't we? But unfortunately, we're going to have to cut it there. And inshallah, it'll be great to catch up with you again. And as I say, catch up with you regarding the other work that you've done. So at some point in the future, it'd be great to have another chat with you. But I really appreciate your time, and thank you very much for that. It's been really interesting.
No worries at all. Thanks very much for having me on.
Thank you.
Cheers, Saj.